discovered a dead baby in the bathroom.
Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. Freaking out of me. I didn't know what to do.
Nancy, I told you about this. I just asked you, baby, to tell me the truth.
Two different teen girls, two different states, accused of giving birth and then immediately throwing the babies away. Literally. A teen in New Mexico stands accused of putting her baby in a hospital trash can, while the other allegedly put her newborn in a dumpster. One child survived, the other did not. We're speaking with the attorney for one of the girls about the intricacies of trying a case like this and how his client is fighting back. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. A passerby in Houston, Texas discovered something horrible last week. A baby tied up inside of a plastic bag and hidden away inside a dumpster. Emergency responders rushed to the scene, pulling the newborn out. This small baby boy still had his umbilical cord attached, and luckily, he survived this. I mean, he was just born that day. According to KHOU 11 News in Houston, the baby boy is doing well. This is all thanks to the witness who heard that child crying. Thank goodness for that. Houston police, they ended up arresting 18-year-old Everilda Cux-Ajtzalam, locked her up on a charge of abandoning a child without intent to return. My understanding, that is a third-degree felony that's punishable by up to 2 to 10 years in prison. She was given a bond of $90,000, but this week the judge increased that bond to $200,000. So as of now, Everilda is still behind bars. The bond documents kind of give us a short summary of what police believe happened here, and it reads, quote, D, this is meaning the defendant, alleged to have given birth on the ground behind the food truck where she works. D put the child, placenta, and umbilical cord into a trash bag, took the trash bag to a dumpster, and left the child in the dumpster tied inside the trash bag. A passerby later heard the baby crying, called 911, and recovered the child. HFD took the child to the hospital. D alleged to have told police that she had no other choice because she didn't want her boyfriend to break up with her. And when police found the baby, he appeared to still be wet from the birth. That's how new this is. And the bond paperwork also points to a very damning piece of evidence with this short line, quote, event caught on surveillance video. Now, one of the reasons for the bond increase, according to court documents, is that Everilda has no ties to the United States and her immigration status is in question. She had an ICE hold placed on her. She's originally from Guatemala, so clearly this is an important issue here. And this case, as we talk about it, it may likely remind you of another one that we spoke about recently here on Sidebar, another infamous incident that happened at a hospital out in New Mexico. 19-year-old Alexee Trevizo went to a hospital in New Mexico in the early morning hours of January 27, 2023, complaining of back pain. And when hospital staff did tests, they discovered Alexee was pregnant. And those results allegedly hadn't been shared with Alexee yet. This is before she went to the bathroom. So that's a key point here. And an arrest warrant lays out the timeline of what happened. So let's get into this. At 1:39 a.m., Alexee went to the public restroom in the emergency room. At 1:40, a staff member checked on her. Then at 1:49, she checked on her again. Staff repeatedly checked on her until 1:57 when Alexee finally left the bathroom. And medical staff explained the situation to police when they arrived.
We did a pregnancy test on her, showed positive. She was denying that she had sex. Then she said she had to go to the bathroom. She went to the bathroom. She was in there for quite a while. We kept knocking on the door. Finally, we got her to open the door, and there was blood everywhere. She was cleaning it up. Okay. So we took her back to the room, and I was afraid that she knew she was pregnant. She had done something to herself. Mm-hmm. So the doctor started doing a vaginal exam on her. We had the lady come to clean the bathroom. She put the baby in the trash can, and then she put another clean liner over the top of it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So when they looked in there, there was no trash in there, but it was underneath the clean bag. The baby's dead. Okay, we have him in trauma too, but she killed the kid.
Yeah. How old was the baby?
I don't know. It's full term. She just had it. She had it in the bathroom. Was what happened, and then whatever she did, I don't know. She's gonna lie. She wouldn't tell us she's pregnant. She's been lying the whole time.
Police body cams, by the way, they were rolling when the doctor told Alexee and her mom that they knew what had happened.
We discovered a dead baby in the bathroom.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry. It came out of me and I didn't know what to do.
Lexi, I told you about this.
But it
I just asked you, baby, to tell me the truth.
scared. It was not crying or nothing.
What did you do to it?
Okay, stop right here.
I
Stop,
just
stop.
put it in-
Number one priority, guys. Number one priority is she just had a baby. I don't know if she's delivered the placenta. She's bleeding significantly.
Yeah. Like, how big is the baby?
It's full
Sal?
term.
What?
Nothing,
9 months?
nothing was crying.
Lexi, have you watched the news of the girls that what they do to their babies and what they go to jail?
Nothing was crying.
In terms, I'm sorry about this, but in terms of delivering a baby and it looked like you tried to hide it, we do have to have the police involved.
And nothing was crying. It came out with nothing.
I know. But the baby's gonna have to be taken for autopsy and there'll be an investigator and everything. I'm really sorry, guys.
Now, Alexee has said she didn't know she was pregnant, that the baby was a stillborn. An examination showed, though, that the baby was breathing when it was born. So is Alexee Trevizo telling the truth? Now, this apparent confession is at the center of a legal battle because before Alexee's trial for first-degree murder and tampering with evidence, which was supposed to start next month, and though that doesn't seem that's going to be happening, Alexee's defense attorney, Gary Mitchell, who we're going to be talking to in a minute, argued at a hearing that the video of Alexee going to and from the bathroom, as well as the video of this alleged confession, that it should be thrown out. Mitchell told the judge that Alexee's doctor-patient privilege was violated when the hospital staff turned over the tapes. The state argued that there was no HIPAA violation, that whatever rights Alexee may have had, she waived them because she decided to speak with medical staff with her mother and police in the room. Court documents show the state also argued that when Trevizo allegedly admitted to the doctor that the baby came out of her and she wasn't sure what to do, she wasn't in police custody. She was allowed to leave. However, the judge in this case ultimately agreed with the defense. Yes, ruled that the evidence should be suppressed, meaning the jury will not see this at trial. The district attorney's office, though, is now asking the New Mexico Supreme Court to step in to overturn that decision. So we will see which way that shakes up. Again, we're going to talk about this in a second. But I will let you know that after her arrest in May of 2023, Alexee was given pretrial release. She was allowed to go to prom and was planning to walk at graduation, but the school ended up asking her not to attend. She has also been attending college afterwards. Hey, so we want to take a minute to thank our incredible sponsor who with their support makes Sidebar happen, Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm. If you should find yourself in that position where you're hurt and you need legal representation, Morgan & Morgan may be who you want in your corner because they are specialists in this area. And you know why they're so big? Because they win a lot. This is a firm with over 1,000 attorneys. And when you work with one of these 1,000 attorneys, you don't just get one of them assigned to your case. No. You get a dedicated army that includes a legal team, case investigators, paralegals, customer case specialists, all focused on maximizing your settlement. And by the way, there's no upfront fee with Morgan & Morgan. You only pay them if you win. So if you're injured, you can easily start a claim at forthepeople.com/LC Sidebar. So I'm joined right now by Gary Mitchell. This is Alexee's attorney. Gary, thanks so much for coming on to speak with me not only about Alexee's case, but this other's case. And we're obviously going to get into both, but I want to just talk about this Texas case first, because it does have these similarities to Alexee's case, right? What was your reaction when you heard about it?
Well, another teenage girl without much help tries to face a major catastrophe in their lives. And that's the one thing that people forget, is that we're not dealing with adults here. We're dealing with young people who have never had to face these consequences before. And then they're having to deal with them. So it's a major issue in their family and in a major issue in their lives. And I always tell lawyers who do these cases, quietly get your client evaluated, find out what you're dealing with, find out the maturity, find out the education, find out the intelligence.
This is not the first case I've seen or even covered. One of the biggest ones was the Skylar Richardson's case, again about a young woman who was involved in the same thing. She was found not guilty in her case. But I want to ask you about this one in particular. How would you defend Ms. Ajtzalam here?
Well, first of all, I'm going to find out exactly what the family situation is. Find out what kind of stressor she's under. Find out how she's educated, what her mental capacity is, and find out particularly if she tried to get any help from anybody and was declined that help. You know, in some of these cases, they try to get help and people turn them away. And now with society like it is in some states, that's a real problem. And being able to think that you can go and get help from a doctor or perhaps a nurse or a midwife, and you find out in that state that you're likely to get prosecuted if you go and say anything. So you try to deal with it, and they don't have the capabilities of dealing with it.
There's a part of these cases, it's almost the sympathy factor for a jury, and I think it works both ways. You could say someone was young, confused, didn't know what to do, didn't have the help that was provided, versus others who will say, this is heartless. How could you do that? So how do you approach cases like that? Because I could see it both ways.
Well, you've got to try to get your clients, if I'm representing the defendant in these cases, you've got to get their story told to the jury in a sympathetic way. And you've got to put those jurors walking in their shoes or walking in their stead, so to speak. And to do that, it's going to require a lot of work from teachers, from classmates, from family, and probably some sociologists certainly talking about what is the nature of their culture and what kind of stresses are placed upon them. For example, classically in these cases, we look for an aunt or we look for a grandmother. And if they don't have an aunt or a grandmother, then they've got real problems to deal with by themselves. Because boyfriends don't deal with this stuff very well.
There's a couple of things. In this case, the one that I mentioned out of Texas, if there's surveillance footage, is that tough to talk about that in front of a jury?
Well, not anymore, because everything's surveilled. You know, between Facebook, between all the social media, between what you and I are doing right now, between all of the Ring cameras on doorbells, all of the security cameras, we expect to have some footage somewhere along the line. And I think people have learned to understand and appreciate that to a certain extent. Doesn't change the mindset, doesn't change the angst, doesn't change the desperation.
Right. No, I understand that. And I guess the interesting aspect about these cases, and I think they're almost unpredictable in a way that each one's a little bit different. There was something you said about telling the story. I always say in self-defense cases that it's almost necessary for the defendant to take the stand to explain why they need to use deadly force. Do you think in these kinds of cases, when you're talking about young mothers, and obviously it's their decision if they want to take the stand, but do you think it's sometimes necessary for them to tell their side of the story about why they did this and take the stand and testify?
You know, I'm sort of a lone ranger among criminal defense attorneys when it comes to that, because I think they have to almost always testify. Because if they don't, then you don't get the understanding that jurors will get from watching somebody or listening to somebody talk, or seeing the struggles that they went through to get where they were. And in this particular instance, I certainly think that that's going to be necessary at some point in time, because it's hard for a mother of a daughter like that to explain, or to a boyfriend to explain. It's far easier if a jury can get it straight from the person that it's happening to. And you've got to we have a country western saying out here that you got to walk a mile in their boots to understand what they're going through. And so I always tell jurors, you've got to walk with them. You've got to understand what they're going through. And when you understand that, then you can make a judgment, but not until then.
Right. Well, that brings me now to Alexi's case, and I want to talk a little bit more about this. So, Gary, what is the current status of the state's attempt to have the New Mexico Supreme Court overturn the suppression of evidence ruling? Has the court even indicated that they want to listen to this issue, that they even want to take up this case? Where are we with that?
Well, we won't know until the Supreme Court makes a decision on that. The case has been appealed, so we're stayed right now. The state has in New Mexico an automatic right to appeal on a suppression type issue where the evidence has been suppressed, like it was in this case, because of the doctor's betrayal of the doctor-patient privilege, in this case, the hospital's betrayal of the hospital-patient privilege, and frankly, the police officer's failure to even warn Alexee of her Miranda warnings and tell her she had a right not to talk to anybody. All of them failed her. All the adults in this case failed her. It was a sad comment, and the judge understands that. I mean, this stuff was videotaped. We had all the medical records that we gave to the judge. We had the fact that the judge is a learned individual herself, particularly when it comes to medical training. She has some medical training. So the judge in this case understood exactly what was going on with the timetable and what was going on with the failures by the hospital and the doctor and such. So that's the situation we have. Unlike other cases, Lexi went to the hospital for help. She didn't go there to hide anything. She went there for help. She didn't know. And I know a lot of people on the internet want to say, well, she had to have known. No, she didn't have to know. 1 in 2,500 women that are pregnant and are getting ready to give birth don't know that they were pregnant. I mean, it's an astounding statistic. A lot of women, a large percentage of women, by the 5th month do not know that you're pregnant. So it's not unusual. And certainly for somebody that's a teenager that doesn't have all the training necessary to understand the biological circumstances of giving birth, wouldn't have that knowledge. So she went there for help. She didn't get it. And then she got betrayed by everybody, all the adults involved in this case. And I say betrayed because, I mean, they should have known better. They should have told her she was pregnant, 1. 2, they should have checked and seen how close to delivery she was. That's just a basic requirement of emergency room medicine. And when they didn't, they shouldn't be able to come in there and say, all right, we need to use all her reactions to this and try to punish her and convict her of first-degree murder based on this evidence or lack thereof, or evidence that's not in good faith, not Mirandized, and not in violation of privileges.
If this evidence is not allowed in trial, is there going to be a trial? Do you think the prosecution moves forward with the case?
I hope not. I hope that's it. I hope this ends it. It should end it, because otherwise we're just going to be trying to try a case based upon hearsay, gossip, rumor, and speculation, guess, and conjecture. And that's never a wise thing to do in the American justice system.
In other words, you're saying the whole prosecution's case against Alexee is built upon her alleged statements that she made at the hospital. No other evidence, really?
Yeah, no other evidence. There is no other evidence. It's what happened at the hospital. That's the extent of it. We've interviewed lots of witnesses. We've talked to lots of people. The boyfriend didn't know. None of her classmates knew, despite what you may read on the internet. There's been nobody come forward under oath and say, hey, she knew. And I believe her. She passed a polygraph test. Keep that in mind. That she thought the baby was not alive. That's a huge deal here.
Wait, but real quick, would those polygraphs be allowed at trial?
They are in New Mexico. We're the only state in the union that allows them, and we do allow them. They're done in accordance with our rules. And this one was done by one of the foremost polygraphers in the state. I think the foremost polygrapher in the state. And did an excellent job, and she passed resoundingly. The fact that she even took one is impressive. But the fact that she passed it, I mean, she's just, in some ways, very naive, but in other ways, just an honest, hardworking young woman who found herself in a jam and went to the right people for help, but the right people didn't give it.
By the way, Gary, if the Supreme Court of New Mexico decides to take up this case and listen to it, when is the earliest this trial would happen?
Next year sometime.
Okay, interesting. Now, on a separate point, right, my understanding is there was a lawsuit that was filed against the hospital alleging that the treatment that Alexee got, that is what caused the stillbirth. What can you tell us about that, and if that will factor into the criminal case in any way?
It won't factor into the criminal case. And yes, there's been a lawsuit based upon medical malpractice filed and based upon a violation of HIPAA, based upon a violation of the privilege, based upon the giving out of all of her records, including her Social Security numbers. I mean, all of that confidential information was just given out. And for the life of me, I can never understand why, as doctors and hospitals, we should know better. But it was just passed out like it was candy, and everybody in the world seemed to have it. I say that everybody in the world. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people that have it. So that's the situation we find ourselves in. So I didn't hesitate. I just said, wait a second, this is wrong. You guys were negligent in the way you handled it. You waited 50 some odd minutes to even tell her that you didn't tell her she was pregnant. You let her go to the bathroom and have a baby in the bathroom. And you didn't think that maybe the reason she has to go to the bathroom is she's getting ready to give birth. I mean, that's a classic indication.
By the way, just so we clarify this before we wrap things up, what was the reason that they didn't tell her or allegedly didn't tell her?
I don't know. To this day, honestly, that's a great question. I'm going to write that down after you and I conclude this interview and make sure I ask it. I want to know the answer to that. Why didn't you tell her? I mean, why did
Are they, by the way, are they denying it? Are they saying, no, we did tell her?
No, I got them under oath saying we didn't tell her.
Interesting.
The nurse that was taking care of her said we didn't tell her. The physician that was taking care of her said we didn't tell her. They never told her.
Well, it's an interesting case. It's a tragic case. It's a sad case. But I've covered these before, and they can go in very different ways. And particularly, I agree with you, Gary. If the state can't introduce that evidence, I would think they may reconsider moving forward with it, because that's really the crux of their case. But we shall see. We have these two different situations in two different states. We wanted your perspective. Gary Mitchell, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Enjoy your day.
All right, everybody, that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.